Without Lord of the Rings, there'd be no Game of Thrones. Basically, George R.R. Martin is just a gritty Tolkien.
But without Beowulf, you wouldn't have Lord of the Rings.
No, without Beowulf, I wouldn't have a D- on my high school transcript, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Look, HBO cast Boromir and then killed him off in the first season. Fellowship much?
Sure, that's an homage.
What's that?
A thing you need to look up later. Seriously. Martin's biggest influence wasn't Lord of the Rings. It was history. Specifically, War of the Roses.
Spoilers, man! I'm not caught up on history yet. I'm gonna watch it on DVD when it comes out.
It's been 600 years, man. You had your chance. The two warring houses in Game of Thrones are Stark and Lannister, right? In the War of the Roses, there were also two houses who were vying for control of the English crown, and their names were York and Lancaster.
Big deal. Lord of the Rings had fire-breathing dragons. Ooh, that the evil king Morgoth used to, like, enslave all the elves. That's like Targaryen style, right there.
Dragons are also in Greek literature, and the Bible, and Beowulf, for that matter.
I wouldn't know.
Okay, but it's the details of War of the Roses where the parallels really start to emerge. Take Tyrion the dwarf.
Ooh, Lords of the Ring had dwarves.
That's a totally different thing. In Lord of the Rings, the dwarves are like a noble, stoneworking race. In Game of Thrones, dwarves are an object of ridicule and disfigured. Tyrion was based mostly on Richard III, who has been described as a man of short stature who was misshapen or hideous. Just like Tyrion, he was considered a monster by most of his peers and colleagues, and a brilliant strategist by a select few. Like Tyrion, he served on an advisory board and then was quickly dismissed for political reasons. And like Tyrion, he was accused of murdering one of his young relatives to expedite his rise to power.
Spoilers, dude. You just ruined, like, all of the Middle Ages for me.
But I'm not done. Daenerys Targaryen, for instance, she's based on Henry VII, whose parents were also killed when he was 3 months old, who also lived 20 years in exile, and who reclaimed the throne of England by crossing the English Channel with a foreign army. Cersei's probably based on Margaret of Anjou. Dude, the list goes on and on.
Maybe, but Jorge stole a lot of his plots from Lord of the Rings. You got the displaced king who wanders the earth until he reclaims his throne. You have the ancient evil that's awakening, and the warrior people who built a fortress to keep it at bay.
But some of George's biggest plots were stolen right out of War of the Roses. Like, okay, let's take the Red Wedding. That was based on an actual event called the Black Dinner, in which a Scottish noble and his clan were invited over to the king's house by an opposing political faction. Everything was going peachy until the opposing faction leader served the Douglas clan's leader a black bull's head on a plate, which is a Scottish symbol for death.
Ooh, did he stab his wife and the baby? Or did they put the bull's head on him and then walk him around town?
No, that was all artistic flourish from George. But they did drag them out of the house and into the courtyard and then behead them.
Still sounds made up. So, Tolkien maintained that he based his stories off Earth's actual history. And if you're saying that Martin is ripping off history, what you're really saying is that it's ripping off Lord of the Rings, which is based off history. Circular logic always wins.
Your circular logic would be true if Lord of the Rings actually happened. But you realize these are both fantasy series, right?
Uh-huh.
There's no elves or demon eyeball towers in the fossil record. You get that, right?
Awesome.
What are you doing?
Looking up montage.
You mean homage?
Yep.